The Nordic model refers to the economic and social policies common to the Nordic countries. This includes a combination of free market capitalism with a comprehensive welfare state and collective bargaining at the national level. Although there are significant differences among the Nordic countries, they all share some common traits. These include support for a universalist welfare state aimed specifically at enhancing individual autonomy and promoting social mobility. A corporatist system involving a tripartite arrangement where representatives of labor and employers negotiate wages and labor market policy mediated by the government. And a commitment to widespread private ownership, free markets and free trade. Each of the Nordic countries has its own economic and social models, sometimes with large differences from its neighbors. While Sweden's neoliberal reforms have reduced the role of the public sector over the last decades, and saw the fastest growth in inequality of any OECD economy, Sweden's income inequality still remains lower than most other countries. Overview. The Nordic model, embracing globalization and sharing risks, characterizes the system as follows: an elaborate social safety net in addition to public services such as free education and universal healthcare. Strong property rights, contract enforcement, and overall ease of doing business. Public pension plans. Low barriers to free trade. This is combined with collective risk sharing, which has provided a form of protection against the risks associated with economic openness. Little product market regulation. Nordic countries rank very high in product market freedom according to OECD rankings. Low levels of corruption. In Transparency International's 2014 Corruption Perceptions Index, all 5 Nordic countries were ranked among the 12 least corrupt of 176 evaluated countries, and Denmark, Finland, Sweden and Norway all ranked within top 5. High percentage of workers belonging to a labor union. In 2010, labor union density was 69.9% in Finland, 68.3% in Sweden, and 54.8% in Norway. In comparison, labor union density was 12.9% in Mexico and 11.3% in the United States. The lower union density in Norway is mainly explained by the absence of a Ghent system since 1938. In contrast, Denmark, Finland and Sweden all have union-run unemployment funds. A partnership between employers, trade unions and the government, whereby these social partners negotiate the terms to regulating the workplace among themselves, rather than the terms being imposed by law. Sweden has decentralized wage coordination, while Finland is ranked the least flexible. The changing economic conditions have given rise to fear among workers as well as resistance by trade unions in regards to reforms. At the same time, reforms and favorable economic development seem to have reduced unemployment, which has traditionally been higher. Denmark's Social Democrats managed to push through reforms in 1994 and 1996. Sweden at 56.6% of GDP, Denmark at 51.7%, and Finland at 48.6% reflect very high public spending. One key reason for public spending is the large number of public employees. These employees work in various fields including education, healthcare, and for the government itself. They often have lifelong job security and make up around a third of the workforce. Public spending in social transfers such as unemployment benefits and early retirement programs is high. In 2001, the wage-based unemployment benefits were around 90% of wage in Denmark and 80% in Sweden, compared to 75% in the Netherlands and 60% in Germany. The unemployed were also able to receive benefits several years before reductions, compared to quick benefit reduction in other countries. Public expenditure for health and education is significantly higher in Denmark, Sweden, and Norway in comparison to the OECD average. Overall tax burdens are among the world's highest. Sweden, Denmark, and Finland. The United Nations World Happiness Report 2013 shows that the happiest nations are concentrated in Northern Europe. The Nordics ranked highest on the metrics of real GDP per capita, healthy life expectancy, having someone to count on, perceived freedom to make life choices, generosity and freedom from corruption. The Nordic countries received the highest ranking for protecting workers' rights on the International Trade Union Confederation's 2014 Global Rights Index, with Denmark being the only nation to receive a perfect score. Aspects. Labor market policy. The Nordic countries share active labor market policies as part of a corporatist economic model intended to reduce conflict between labor and the interests of capital. The corporatist system is most extensive in Sweden and Norway, where employer federations and labor representatives bargain at the national level mediated by the government. Labor market interventions are aimed at providing job retraining and relocation. The Nordic labor market is flexible, with laws making it easy for employers to hire and shed workers or introduce labor-saving technology. To mitigate the negative effect on workers, the government labor market policies are designed to provide generous social welfare, job retraining and relocation to limit any conflicts between capital and labor that might arise from this process. Economic system. The Nordic model is underpinned by a free market capitalist economic system that features high degrees of private ownership with the exception of Norway, which includes a large number of state-owned enterprises operating in a free market economy. The Nordic model is described as a system of competitive capitalism combined with a large percentage of the population employed by the public sector. In 2013, The Economist described its countries as stout free traders who resist the temptation to intervene even to protect iconic companies while also looking for ways to temper capitalism's harsher effects, and declared that the Nordic countries are probably the best governed in the world. Some economists have referred to the Nordic economic model as a form of cuddly capitalism, with low levels of inequality, generous welfare states and reduced concentration of top incomes, and contrast it with the more cutthroat capitalism of the United States, which has high levels of inequality and a larger concentration of top incomes. Nordic welfare model. The Nordic welfare model refers to the welfare policies of the Nordic countries, which also tie into their labor market policies. The Nordic model of welfare is distinguished from other types of welfare states by its emphasis on maximizing labor force participation, promoting gender equality, egalitarian and extensive benefit levels, the large magnitude of income redistribution, and liberal use of expansionary fiscal policy. While there are differences among different Nordic countries, they all share a broad commitment to social cohesion, a universal nature of welfare provision in order to safeguard individualism by providing protection for vulnerable individuals and groups in society, and maximizing public participation in social decision-making. It is characterized by flexibility and openness to innovation in the provision of welfare. The Nordic welfare systems are mainly funded through taxation. Despite the common values, the Nordic countries take different approaches to the practical administration of the welfare state. Denmark features a high degree of private sector provision of public services and welfare, alongside an assimilation immigration policy. Iceland's welfare model is based on a welfare-to-work model, while part of Finland's welfare state includes the voluntary sector playing a significant role in providing care for the elderly. Norway relies most extensively on public provision of welfare. Poverty reduction. The Nordic model has been successful at significantly ameliorating poverty. In 2011, poverty rates, before taking into account the effects of taxes and transfers, stood at 24.7% in Denmark, 31.9% in Finland, 21.6% in Iceland, 25.6% in Norway, and 26.5% in Sweden. After accounting for taxes and transfers, the poverty rates for the same year became 6%, 7.5%, 5.7%, 7.7%, and 9.7% respectively, for an average reduction of 18.7 pp compared to the US, which has a poverty level pre-tax of 28.3% and post-tax of 17.4% for a reduction of 10.9 pp. The effects of tax and transfers on poverty in all the Nordic countries are substantially bigger. In comparison to France and Germany, however, the taxes and transfers in the Nordic countries are smaller on average. Reception. Gerrymander has likened the Nordic model to a kind of hybrid system which features a blend of capitalist economics and socialist values. According to sociologist Lane Kenworthy, in the context of the Nordic model, social democracy refers to a set of policies intended to improve capitalism as opposed to a system to replace capitalism. Kenworthy advocates for the U.S. to make a gradual transition to an economic system similar to those of the Nordic countries. United States Senator Bernie Sanders, a self-described democratic socialist, has been a strong proponent of the Nordic system. Nobel Prize-winning economist Joseph Stiglitz has noted that there is higher social mobility in the Scandinavian countries than in the United States, and argues that Scandinavia is now the land of opportunity that the United States once was. According to Naomi Klein, former Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev sought to move the USSR in a similar direction to the Nordic system, combining free markets with a social safety net euro, but still retaining public ownership of key sectors ingredients that he believed would transform the USSR into a socialist beacon for all mankind. The Nordic combination of extensive public provision of welfare and a culture of individualism has been described by Lars Trakarency Nrdh, of Ersta Paragraph Dahl University College, as statist individualism. Criticism. The socialist economists John Romer and Prainab Barton criticize Nordic-style social democracy and question its effectiveness at promoting relative egalitarianism. They point out that social democracy requires a strong labor movement to sustain its heavy redistribution, noting that it is idealistic to think such redistribution can be accomplished in other countries with weaker labor movements. They note that even in the Scandinavian countries social democracy has been in decline since the labor movement weakened, arguing that the sustainability of social democracy is limited. Romer and Barton argue that changing enterprise ownership and establishing a market socialist economy would be more effective than redistribution at promoting egalitarianism. See also, collective bargaining, flexicurity, folkhemmet, mixed economy, prostitution in Sweden, social corporatism, social democracy, social market economy, Swedish welfare, welfare capitalism. Lists Corruption Perceptions Index, Democracy Index, Legatum Prosperity Index, List of countries by Inequality Adjusted HDI, List of countries by Social Progress Index, World Happiness Report. References. Further reading, Buck and Knapp, Greg. Defending the Swedish Model, Social Democrats, Trade Unions, and Labour Migration Policy Reform. Lexington Books. Christiansen, Niels Finn al. The Nordic Model of Welfare, Hilson, Mary. The Nordic Model, Scandinavia since 1945, Kenworthy, Lane. Social Democratic America. Oxford University Press USA. ISBN 0199322511, Qvist, John, A. al. Changing Social Equality, The Nordic Welfare Model in the 21st Century, Nick Brandel, Irvine Brattberg, Dag Einar Horsen. The Nordic Model of Social Democracy Palgrave Macmillan. ISBN 1137013265. External links, The Nordic Way a Euro World Economic Forum. Davos 2011, Utopia Sustained, The Nordic Model of Social Democracy. Dag Einar Horsen, Nick Brandel, Irvine Brattberg. Fabian Society, April 8, 2013. The Secret of Their Success. The Economist. February 2, 2013. What Can We Learn from Denmark? Bernie Sanders, Huffington Post, May 26, 2013. What is Scandinavia doing right? The New York Times. September 25, 2013. What makes Scandinavia different? Rune Marleshdal and Andreas Marlemelvad for Jacobin, August 4, 2015.